Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm Shahzad Qayyum. Today we're going to be talking about positivity rate, which is rising. The COVID-19 positivity rate, which has crossed actually 5%. We will talk about the causes, preventive measures, and the facts related to this disease. Also, our second segment is Taliban's call on Joe Biden to stick with the troops withdrawal deal. Also, we will talk about Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia's agreement to stop the fight in Nagorno-Karabakh. We'll also talk about the smoke conditions in Lahore a little bit. And right now, talking about the positivity rate, we could go to our first segment. We have an increase of 5%, we passed 5%. And right now, it's a really kind of a challenging situation across Pakistan because the second wave is here. Let's take a look. What are the details at this point?
The NCOC reveals startling figures that suggest that community spread is rampant. Increased testing is necessary to get a better idea of actual extent. While the positivity rate of COVID-19 cases has again surpassed 5% after a gap of over 3 months, the highest increase in confirmed cases has been observed in the Azad Jammu Kashmir. The cases have increased by 8.71% in Balochistan, 5.39% in Sindh, 4.46% in Punjab, and 3.24% in Gilgit-Baltistan. While in Islamabad and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, cases have decreased by 4.92% and 4.61% respectively. In Pakistan, the maximum positivity rate had reached 23% in June as it had increased from 6% in May. While the positivity rate was brought down to 1.7% in September, the NCOC was informed that the number of deaths in Pakistan surpassed 7,000. 23 deaths were reported on November 10th. Similarly, the trend of new admissions due to COVID has also started rising as 131 patients were admitted in hospital across the country as compared to 46 on October 5th. The NCOC was informed that among healthcare workers, 8,573 cases were confirmed, which was 3% of overall COVID cases. Around 96% healthcare workers recovered. To curb the further spread, NCOC had introduced stricter SOPs and has recommended early and extended winter vacations for students amid a rise in the COVID-19 positivity ratio at educational institutions. As medical experts are celebrating vaccine breakthrough, expectations around it must be managed, especially since mass producing it and rolling it over to the rest of the world will not come without challenges.
Now, as we saw on our package, the condition is getting quite challenging now. We are joined by Mr. Javed Sadiq, senior analyst with us in studio. So thanks a lot for being with us today. Now, as we can see, this second wave is hitting Pakistan as well, just like other parts of the country. Do you see the numbers surpassing our first wave?
I think yes. Unfortunately, the second wave has hit Pakistan as it has done elsewhere in the world. You know, the Western world we are witnessing is being hit by the second wave, which is very severe. And here in Pakistan too, as you have mentioned, that the positivity rate has crossed the 5% mark, which is very alarming. And if we do not follow the SOPs, which are universal and which are to be adhered to very strictly, and you know, using masks, keeping the social distance, and also avoid going into the big crowds. These are the three things which we need to do. But unfortunately, our people are not abiding by this thing. They are not abiding by the SOPs, and we have seen in the markets where people converge in huge number and they are not wearing masks, they are not following the SOPs, and that is the major cause of spreading this virus, COVID-19. So we need to be very careful and cautious. And I think the role of the government, plus the role of the media and other social actors, the ulamas and others, is very important to tell the people not to fall prey to this COVID-19 disease, because it is very devastating. We have seen the economic impact of COVID-19 in Pakistan. When the businesses were closed down, hundreds of thousands of people were rendered jobless. So this becomes a very, very difficult situation for a common man in Pakistan. So we need to be very careful. We need to go by these SOPs so that it doesn't spread that way, it doesn't go very up on the ladder, and so the people are not economically distracted, or economically people are not hit. That is the more important aspect of this COVID-19. The government of Pakistan under Imran Khan had, in the first phase of COVID-19, they had introduced the idea of smart lockdown, which produced very positive results.
Right.
Also, they introduced these Asas packages for the common people who were jobless, who were poor and needy. And I think the first phase we have dealt with very carefully, and I think in a positive manner. But the second phase, the second wave that has hit Pakistan again, we need to be more careful and cautious.
Right, absolutely. Now we're joined by Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar, epidemiologist. Doctor, thanks a lot for joining us. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Now, we just heard about, yesterday I think that we heard that a vaccine is about to be, available worldwide. It's an American company which is actually has claimed that the 90% of the vaccine is effective. How do you see that actually, how that vaccine will be available in Pakistan? Obviously, we're talking about masses here because we're going to need worldwide in a huge quantity. Also, another factor that we learn is that that particular vaccine needs to be stored or handled under 70 degree negative, minus 70 degrees Celsius. What are your thoughts on it?
Yes, thank you for inviting. And yes, that's a great news for a global level, because this is the first vaccine which has shown tremendously good results in a big phase 3 trials of 44,000. The number of people who were part of that research was around 44,000. And as the data is suggesting, that it is 90% effective. So for a vaccine to be 90% effective is more than what you hope for. Just to give you a comparison, that annual flu vaccines, which we recommend everyone to get, is only around 60% effective. So if some vaccine which is for coronavirus comes at 90% effective, that's a big sign. But here are the problems which you have already mentioned. One is the availability. The company says that they will be able to produce around 1.5 billion vaccines by the end of next year. 50 million they are planning to produce within this year. Many rich countries have already paid them in advance, huge amount of money to, like pre-orders, just like, before something comes, you pay the money and pre-order, so you are upfront in the line. So that's one issue. Number two is that, as you explained, you need to keep that it at under 70 degrees centigrade temperature. That's not that it's not doable in Pakistan, because we do have the facilities to manage this. The only thing is that the person has to come to that place, some major lab or wherever it is being stored, and there you have to arrange a vaccination center. So it's not that it can't be done, but in our part of the world, it's much more difficult than using a vaccine which is stable on a room temperature or just refrigeration. So about Pakistan, I would say that still we should not put our hopes too much on that vaccine. But globally, if people start using different vaccines and getting protected, overall, all of us will be protected. So that's a good news for all of us, no matter if the people in the rich countries are getting this vaccine, because overall then globally the infection rates will go down. But just not to lose hope, because China and Russia has also actually started using their own vaccines without waiting for their phase 3 trials. Pakistan is also, I think, in partnership with China, is doing a phase 3 trial in Pakistan. At least I think maybe the two different vaccines are being under trial. So the news which is from Pfizer or this company may not be directly beneficial to us, but the vaccine research overall is going, giving good signs and good results. So I have a lot of hope, but any vaccine, even if it comes to Pakistan, will take a year or so to fully deploy it. So for until that time happens, we all need to wear masks, and we all need to wear to follow social distance, make sure that the windows and doors are open, so it's a good ventilated building where you go. So we have to avoid crowds, also both inside and outside. So all the protection need to still there until we get the vaccine.
That I wanted to ask is that let's talk about the spread of this particular disease or the virus. We know it's highly contagious, and why there are time period differences between the first and the second wave. I mean, if something is out there, if there is a pandemic out there, why it's not joined together? Why there is a break?
Yes, and I think that's a great question, that why just first wave do not stay, why don't just first wave finishes all the vulnerable people. But that's not how outbreaks or pandemics happens. And remember this, even the pandemic, it's a global level. These are still local outbreaks. Giving you an example, that in US, the first outbreak of COVID-19 came on their west coast in Seattle, and it was pretty nicely controlled. Then a new outbreak started, which came from a different virus, like a different route through Europe, and it started in New York. That was the different. It has its own dynamics, and it was part of the East Coast, which basically it affected. Then the third one they had was from their southern states and west southern states, from which the third wave started. So outbreaks behave like this because eventually they go local by local, but if it is transmission is everyone, they jump one place from other. Let's talk about why first, like globally, the first phase ended around summer, and now the second phase or second wave is going up. Most probably, and that's what we are thinking about, is that this is a seasonal virus. That means it's
Right.
prefer
Right.
cold and dry weather. So when
Right.
Pakistan got the virus
I'm just gonna talk to Javed Saab here real quick. If you can just please stay with us. Javed Saab, what do you think? Now, today we learned that there is a statement from Federal Minister Asad Umar. He said that there is a possibility of giving the winter vacations to the children in the schools and all the educational institutes earlier, and they might be extended for a longer period of time. How do you see this? You think that's going to take place?
I think yes, that will, because the schools and the institutions were opened on September 15th of this year,
Right.
with the hope that the COVID-19 was under control, and they thought that the schools should be opened and the educational losses which were there in Pakistan, they should be eliminated. But again, we are finding that some schools, some colleges, some institutional educational institutions, they are the victims of this COVID-19, and many schools here in the capital, Lahore, elsewhere in Pakistan, they have been closed because some students and some teachers were found infected by this COVID-19. So this is very important, and I think we need to save the lives of these children, which I think, I'm not an expert, but I think they are more susceptible and vulnerable to this COVID-19. So we need to save their lives, and we need to close, and also the social distancing in the class, and also the use of mask and other important instructions which are to be followed by the students and teachers can avert the crisis, can avert the spread of this COVID-19. And I think that is a very important thing. And Asad Umar has been warning us for the last few weeks that the second wave is there. It has hit Pakistan,
Right,
and we
right.
need to take necessary action, which is we have to follow the SOPs, which we had followed in the first phase, and we were spared, the disastrous effect of this coronavirus then. And hopefully that if we follow these SOPs and social distancing is maintained masks are used in places where there's a huge gathering, particularly in the weddings.
Absolutely.
You know, the government had decided to close down these wedding
Right,
halls
right, right.
because of this fear that these wedding halls are the main spreader of this COVID-19. So these steps are being taken, but still, you know, it is the duty of every Pakistani to save himself from this fatal disease and also the others living with us.
Right, right. I want to ask you, Dr. Jawad, we just talked about the vulnerable elements, you know, the segments of society. Somehow, I don't know, from somewhere we have heard that the children are least vulnerable to this particular disease. Is that right?
Yes. Actually, each disease has its own preferences for the age group. Some diseases are target more young children, some to the older, and some. We had one type of a flu virus pandemic, which actually targeted young adult men. For this coronavirus, the more your age is, more vulnerable you are, and more you are vulnerable for complications and death. So children under 10 are, they have very few. I'm not saying that there is no zero danger, because we have seen deaths and disease in every age group, but comparatively, it's the older people who are more at risk. Not only older people, all those people who have other chronic diseases like diabetes, like heart diseases, like kidney disease, where your immune system is a little bit depressed. So all these people, old people and people with even obesity is a major risk factor. So we should all, try to protect ourselves, even forgetting about the age group. Now about the school issues, yes, children have less chances of getting a severe disease, but they can transmit this disease to their elders who could be vulnerable, like their grandparents, their own parents, their uncles, aunts who are elder, and that's something was first suspected. But in USA, we have seen now like at least two instances where children from school picked the disease, brought it home, and started two different outbreaks in their own relatives. So we need to be careful on that issue. And I think Sadiq Saab is very correct, Javed Sadiq Saab is very correct, that it's very difficult in majority of schools to follow up SOPs which are required.
Now, let me ask you another thing, Dr. Jawad. What preventive measures, what precautions an individual should take compared to regular flu? Obviously, the weather is changing, the winter is here now. What precautionary measure one should take? The flu has its own preventive measures and, precautions. What differences we have? What can we do differently than the flu preventive measures?
So from, countries like Australia and other places where, there is reverse of weather pattern than us, because when we have summer, they have winter. What we have learned is that the precautions which we are taking for COVID-19 are actually helping us to protect us from the flu also, because majority of them are the same, that you wear mask. This is the number one. You wear mask, everyone, and ensure that everyone who is meeting with you is wearing the mask, because when you wear the mask, you're actually helping others. But if everyone is wearing the mask, then we are all protected. So number one. Number two, keep the distance. 6 feet distance is the minimum you should follow. Social distancing on all times, and be cautious of that. Number three, again, washing your hands with soap frequently, but I will put number three now, the making sure that there is a cross ventilation in your public places. Like for example, if you run a shop, if you run a restaurant or whatever place inside it, make sure the fresh air is coming in and going out, because ventilation is actually very helpful in reducing the transmission of COVID-19. So this is the new sort of addition, and everything else is pretty much the same. But here is the challenge now. The winter is coming. In winter, because of the weather, we close our windows and doors, and everyone sit together in close
Close
in the
environment, that's
vicinity
right.
of heaters,
Right.
and that's put us at a higher danger than as compared to the when we were going through the summer. So I think that's why in winter we need to come up with new thinking and making sure that you are warm but still have a social distance and still the fresh air is going in and going out. So these things you need to follow to make sure that this winter is not a bad winter for all of us.
Right, right, absolutely. Now, Dr. Jawad, thanks a lot for being with us and sharing your precious time. Javed Saab, what do you think? The second wave is here. We all know that, and the cases are actually growing rapidly. How prepared are we?
I think we are not. Unfortunately, we haven't learned lessons from the first phase. And we are seeing, we are witnessing the people are very careless, in the markets, in the social gatherings, in the offices too. Some of the offices, I've seen people taking it very lightly.
Right.
They don't wear masks, and they don't maintain the social distance, which is so important. And these things need to be taken care of. We need to follow these SOPs. We need to follow this in our own interest and in the interest of our society or people at large. That is very important. And I don't know why it is happening, because it is a careless attitude of our people. And if they don't do it, they will be spreading this virus to other people, making them unsafe. And when I and you do not wear this mask, we become unsafe. So we have become vulnerable. So this is very important. We need to follow these SOPs. That is very important, and it doesn't cost us much. A mask, is hardly 10 rupee a mask.
Yes,
So it is affordable. Also, the social distancing is something which doesn't cost any money, and care is very important. We need to take care, and if we take care and we are conscious that we are vulnerable to this virus, then things will improve. And I think we can overcome it. Many countries in the world, China is one example, South Korea, and many other countries in the world, they have shown that by strictly following these SOPs, maintaining social distance, wearing masks, keeping oneself isolated if one is affected or infected by this virus, they have been able to eliminate this disease, this virus. And that is the way Pakistanis can get rid of this fatal virus.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, preventive measures, SOPs, following the SOPs is the key, to stop and curb this particular disease. Now, let's shift to our second segment. Now, Taliban's call on Joe Biden to stick with the U.S. withdrawal, the troops withdrawal from Afghanistan. Let's take a look at the details.
The success of the Afghan peace process, which has been facilitated by Pakistan, will determine the future direction of the ties under a Biden presidency. Lately, Afghanistan's insurgent Taliban called on the incoming administration of US President-elect Joe Biden to stick to the February agreement to withdraw US troops. In the past, Biden has been vocal about the need to withdraw troops from Afghanistan after more than 19 years of war. Earlier, Ghani has said in a statement that Afghanistan looks forward to continuing and deepening multi-layered strategic partnership with the US and further bringing peace to Afghanistan. The United States has been pulling out troops under the deal which envisages the withdrawal to be complete by May, subject to certain security guarantees while the Taliban holds peace talks with the Afghan government in Doha. Pakistan played a crucial role in facilitating the intra-Afghan peace talks and always have been at the forefront of international initiatives for promoting peace and rendered precedented sacrifices during the journey of maintaining peace in Afghanistan.
Now, we're also joined by Saddam Hussein Research Fellow CRSS with us. Thanks a lot for joining us today, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm just going to ask a quick question from Javed Saab. Now, we're probably going to, not probably, it's pretty much sure that we're going to see a regime change in the United States. Now, what do you think, how it will affect this troops withdrawal agreement?
Hopefully, this agreement that has been pursued by the United States President Trump administration will also be followed by the Joe Biden administration as well. I think this is in the national interest of the United States to pursue it vigorously, the withdrawal of the troops. There could be some differences, some nuances there of policy towards Afghanistan, but the basic objective is to put an end to this war. And Taliban's have appealed to the new president, the president-elect of the United States, Joe Biden, that he should carry out the same program or the same agenda which was set by his predecessor, Donald Trump. And Donald Trump seemed to be very keen to withdraw troops from Afghanistan, to have some kind of reconciliation between the Afghan government and Taliban, and he had put a lot of pressure and exerted a lot of influence on both sides to come to an agreement. Pakistan also played a very important role in that, and the world particularly and United States of America are appreciative of Pakistan's efforts to bring these two sides, the Afghan government and the Taliban, on the negotiation table. And we hope that these two sides will be able to hammer out a dispensation, democratic dispensation for Afghanistan, so that this country becomes a democratic state, or at least this bloodshed and this civil war could come to an end, and there's a peace in Afghanistan. Peace in Afghanistan means a lot for Pakistan and the neighboring countries, because we all are going to benefit from it.
Right, right. Now, Mr. Saddam Hussain, Javed Saab just mentioned same thing, that it may continue by Joe Biden, but we know one thing for sure, that the outgoing President Donald Trump was very serious about this withdrawal, the troops withdrawal, and he used this as he made this move and used it as the primary tool for his campaign. Do you think Joe Biden will be as serious as President Donald Trump?
Thank you very much for asking the question. I guess, as you know, if we look inwards America, within America, there will be a shift in the policy change. But the foreign policy front, the substance of it always remains the same. It's just we see the tailoring and adjustment to the substance of the foreign policy. Biden and his advisors understand the importance of a stable and peaceful Afghanistan. I think he may prefer to stretch out the military withdrawal, making it truly conditional, to end the violence, and use extra time to apply more pressure on the Taliban to ensure an agreement that is a peace deal and not only a withdrawal deal. With that, Biden has also been vocal about having some footprint in Afghanistan, maybe from 1,500 to 2,000 soldiers, as special operations, to have a footprint in Afghanistan, so that to keep this the national security interest of America safe, so that we don't see a 9/11 kind of episode again in history. So I guess the process will be slowed down a bit, a more rational approach will be adopted, but the substance will remain same.
What do you think about the how this the Afghan government, do you think their relationship with the United States will still be the same?
I guess Ashraf Ghani and his regime and the government very rationally delayed the Afghan peace process, the talks, because I guess they had an idea that Trump will be going out and they will be having a new president in the shape of Joe Biden. And more or less Afghan government at the present and Joe Biden approach are on the same page, because they also don't want a speedy peace process with a lot of drawbacks. So I guess Joe Biden and Afghan government both wants to have a comprehensive talk and comprehensive framework for the future of Afghanistan, and don't haste things which could be detrimental for the future of Afghanistan. So I guess Ashraf Ghani and Joe Biden will be comfortable with each other, and I guess it's a bit tough time for the Taliban. They might be changing the equation and the factors of the equation they have been playing so far with the Trump. So I guess they both will be comfortable, the Ashraf Ghani and the Joe Biden.
Now, the peace process which has been taking place in Doha, Qatar, and we know that Mark Esper, a former Defense Secretary of United States, also mentioned in the peace process, he addressed and said that it's a bumpy ride, obviously. It's not going to be smooth transition. How long do you think it will take?
It can take a long time. We could not anticipate, and it can take years or months. But I guess we should not rush. We should be patient, and we should carve out a peace agreement. Afghans should carve out a peace roadmap for themselves. Um, it doesn't worry. It is not a worry that if it's a lengthy process, but if it's a flawed process, then it will be a worry for the region and for the international community as well. So it might take months or years. It should take months and years to consolidate the gains Afghanistan have made so far, to discuss everything that Afghanistan future relates to, and have and strengthen the position of the
Right, right. Now,
Afghan.
I'm going to
Yeah.
ask Javed Saab real quick. Sir, I mean, if the peace process is underway, right, they are actually trying their best level at their best, to follow the conditions and to make sure that they fulfill the, all the agreements conditions. Why we are seeing this unrest then in Afghanistan? I mean, we hear all the time there is a bomb blast, there is a terrorist attack and all that. Why all this is taking place at the
I
same
think
time?
one reason is that Taliban's and both the Afghan government are trying to negotiate from a position of strength, and precisely for this reason, Taliban's strategy has been to destabilize this government in Kabul, and that's why they are resorting to these kind of activities, terrorism and bomb blasts and all these things, killing of people, attacking the Afghan forces, police officials, etc. But I think this is also not helpful for an atmosphere, a conducive atmosphere for talks in Afghanistan. Taliban have been urged both by the United States of America and their friends elsewhere in the world to abstain from resorting to this violence and abstain from attacking the Afghan army and the people at large, so that a peaceful atmosphere is generated to pursue these talks. But Taliban's strategy has always been to destabilize the Afghan government and give an impression that the time is on their side, that they are winning the war, and they want to dictate their own terms to the Americans as well as the Ghani government. So I think this is the reason that mostly these things are done. Unfortunately, the violence is there. But what we need to see, and we fear that like the Soviet troops, when they left Afghanistan back in 89, 90, the country had plunged into a civil war. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed in Afghanistan by the warring factions, by the lords, the warlords in Afghanistan. But I think we need not, we should try to avoid that situation again. We need a peaceful, stable Afghanistan in our neighborhood, and I think other neighboring countries too. They're desperate to see a peaceful and stable Afghanistan so that the neighboring countries also benefit from it. Unstable and in Afghanistan, which is internally divided, and there is a war, civil war-like situation in Afghanistan, that is not going to be beneficial to anybody, particularly the neighboring countries, and specifically Pakistan.
Right, that's the whole concern. I mean, you just mentioned about the region and the neighboring countries. The peace deal is in process right now, and then still we are seeing this instability in the region. How long it will take, I mean, to be that the things will go back to normalize?
It is difficult to predict how long will it be stable. But obviously there are so many stakeholders in Afghanistan, the Taliban and the Ghani government, Ashraf Ghani government, and other factions also. And they try to, I mean, what they are trying? They're trying to have their share in the future of Afghanistan, future government of Afghanistan.
Right.
They want to have their share. So they all are asserting their influence. They all are trying to get themselves registered and heard by the relevant authorities, relevant people, so that they are also not ignored in any future government or any future dispensation in Afghanistan. Precisely this reason, the situation seems to be very, uncertain, and it is, we find that Afghanistan is not stable, and we fear today the Iranian foreign minister is in Islamabad
Right.
holding talks on the same issue. And I think Iran too is keen to have a stable, peaceful Afghanistan. Pakistan, Iran, and other countries sharing borders with Afghanistan, they all are keen to have a peaceful, stable Afghanistan. It is in their interest.
Right, absolutely. Now, Saddam Saab, what do you think? President Donald Trump claimed that the troops will be out by Christmas, which obviously one of his aides actually said that this move cannot take place actually practically till the May of next year. Do you think Joe Biden will go more aggressively in terms of withdrawing the troops from the region? And one more thing, how if this thing, let's say if it takes place, the troops withdrawal, how it will affect Pakistan?
I don't think so. Biden will take this a daring move. One thing is sure, that Biden won't treat Doha like Trump treated the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with Iran. He unilaterally withdrew. So I don't think this is going to happen. Joe Biden will have a more rational approach, and the troop withdrawal may slow down. And after Christmas, it's not a question to the complete withdrawal would happen until the Christmas. But let's say, as you asked, if this happens, Pakistan would have a big responsibility, and all the negative spillover effect would come to Pakistan, and the regional countries would also be concerned, especially Iran and China. So I guess Joe Biden also would have these factors in his equation when considering the troop withdrawal. So I guess there's a regional approach that, economic is taking the driving seat. CPEC is there, BRI is there, Iran is also entering into these ventures, and Russia is also interested. So for economic stability and economic progress, peace is very important. And for peace, to achieve peace, the hasty decision like Trump did to withdraw the troops until the Christmas, this won't work. So these are complex issues, have been there for decades, and these might take decades for a resolution. So this is the way forward. Patience and economic have the driving seat. Economics and patience would steer the peace process of Afghanistan.
You just mentioned a negative spill over Pakistan. Does that mean that we're going to see a lot of unrest in border areas, or in terms of law and order in the border area, or how it will impact in negative manner?
Exactly. If there's a troop withdrawal, obviously the Taliban would be in the position of strength, and Afghan government and Afghan national army have built a certain capacity to, if they cannot win, at least they can fight for a few months. So the fighting between the state forces and the Taliban would have, the volatile situation in Afghanistan and region as well. So this is what I meant for negative spillover effect. Fighting going on in your neighboring country. So what can you expect? So it will have a direct negative impact on Pakistan.
Right, absolutely. Well, thanks all for joining us, Saddam Hussain Saab, and sharing your precious time today. Javed Saab, Saddam Saab just mentioned about the border unrest which can also take place. Now, if there is a peace process between the two, the Afghan government and between the Taliban, then obviously, do you think they will stick with their agreement after the troops will be pulled out by United States?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not very optimistic, because I saw the post-Soviet era in Afghanistan. I've been visiting Afghanistan in those days.
Right.
And there was a civil war, there was a strife, the warlords were fighting between themselves, people were being killed, and that era was, a very dreadful one. And I think, I pray that it doesn't happen again. And I think the people of Afghanistan, after 40 years of war, they need peace and they need stability. But it is very difficult to tell in certain terms that there will be peace and stability in Afghanistan, because the internal forces or the factions that are at war with each other in Afghanistan, vying with each other to get an upper hold in the future setup of Afghanistan. It is difficult to say that there will be peace in that country, and Pakistan is going to bear the brunt of the situation. We have seen this, we have done it in the past as well. When the Soviets left, Pakistan suffered a lot. The unrest in the border areas, the refugees, Pakistan is very keen to send back these refugees to Afghanistan, but unfortunately, if there is no peace in Afghanistan, no stability there, we will not be able to repatriate these Afghan refugees back to Afghanistan, and Pakistan may have more refugees coming from Afghanistan.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today in our studio, Javed Sadiq Saab, Senior Analyst. Now, we go back to our highlighted news. We had a great development, actually, which took place that Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia, they signed an agreement, a peace agreement, and to end the fight in Nagorno-Karabakh. Now, this agreement is signed under a pact which Russia calls for deployment of nearly 2,000 Russian peacekeepers and territorial concessions. Nagorno-Karabakh has been under the control of ethnic Armenian forces since 1994 in a separatist war which took place, and nearly 30,000 people lost their lives. Now, several ceasefires had been called, but were almost immediately violated. There were a lot of peace agreements and the agreements to stop the fighting, and different kinds of agreements took place in the past, but none of them actually worked very well. However, this time it's obviously Russia is involved in it, and that made this particular one a significant because this time also Nagorno, the Azerbaijani government and the forces, they actually took the a city which is very important. It's called Shushi on last Sunday, and regarding that peace agreement, Armenian Prime Minister called the agreement extremely painful for him and for his people. And in response, Armenian citizens actually they came to the streets of the capital and actually protested because of the agreement, which is not in the favor of Armenia according to them. Also, we talk about the a major issue that we face in the winter season, especially in our areas in Punjab, especially the smoke issue is huge, which actually is very I would say that it's there are a lot of things that we can do. First of all, let's see the causes. Let's take a look what causes the smoke. It's actually the seasonal crop burning, and then we have this smoke from the bricks kilns. Also automobiles pollution, which is basically due to poor fuel quality and unfortunately lack of pollution control technologies in our vehicles. That's one of the things. If we compare it to, if we look at any other country which is a developed country, we'll see there is a whole check and balance of emissions. They have devices that are installed everywhere on the roads which actually monitor the air pollution, the pollution that is created by the vehicle. Also the what are the key elements to reduce the smoke? Drive less, obviously. Do not drive your vehicles unnecessarily unless you really have to take it to somewhere, and then keep your vehicles maintained and smoke free as much as possible. Also usage of zigzag technology. That's another key element in the bricks kilns, will also reduce the effects. Now, with this, we conclude our today's show, and then once again, we thank to all the guests, and until next time, we'll see you guys.
first case, and that is an example for future. Not anybody use